Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Global Biotech Week seminar on the science of food. This is going to be an opportunity to celebrate the great food that we grow right here in the country of Canada and the science behind our food. My name is Clinton Monchuk, and I'm the Executive Director of Farm and Food Care Saskatchewan. For those of you who don't know, Farm and Food Care Saskatchewan aims to have these conversations about how our food is grown in an effort to make sure all consumers understand and are more confident in their food choices from products produced right here in Canada. I also farm with my brother Andrew on a grain and table egg farm just outside of Lanigan, Saskatchewan. We also lead a national brand and initiative called Canadian Food Focus, and you can all check it out at canadianfoodfocus.org. This is a national project that we do, and it encourages people to understand more about their food through videos, articles, and recipes. Feel free to go to canadianfoodfocus.org. We're very excited to partner with the Saskatchewan Global Biotech Week Committee on the webinar today. Each year around the world, Global Biotech Week offers a series of different events to increase their awareness of biotechnology and to celebrate science. This is something that's very important to food production right here in this country, and this is why Canadian Food Focus is involved this year. We want you to use the chat function and engage with us during the webinar. Stay tuned throughout the event for chances to win one of 3 different prizes. You know what? In fact, right now, let's actually start right off the bat with one of the prizes. So the way it's going to work is you have to type in the answer into the chat function, and we will select one of you for the winner. So the first question for the first prize is, tell me, what is the main ingredient that makes bread rise? Okay, throw your answers into the chat function. And again, what is the main ingredient that makes bread rise? That's right, it is yeast. We will follow up with the winner to sort things out in the details, and stay tuned for 2 more prizes during the webinar. Okay, let's get into today's session all about food science. We're going to jump right in with food scientist Sara Lui. Sara's going to tell us how to make bread, as well as explain how you can put the science of yeast and gluten to work to create this simple yet delicious food. The recipe can be found on Canadian Food Focus's website, and there's a link in the bottom of the comments section. Now let's meet our expert. Sara is the Director of New Product Innovation at the Saskatchewan Food Industry Development Centre. The Food Centre works with partners from all over the world to create and test new food ideas. Sara?
Thanks, Clinton. My name is Sara Lui. I'm the Director of New Product Innovation at the Saskatchewan Food Industry Development Centre. Next to me is Miriam. She is helping us to making bread today. Welcome to our Product Development Lab. Today, I would like to use this opportunity to explain to you the 2 most important ingredients in making bread, yeast and wheat flour. Bread is made from wheat flour. Do you know how wheat is grown in Canada? And that Saskatchewan is a major player. Canadian wheat is in high demand around the globe because of its high and strong bread making quality. Wheat grows in Saskatchewan and Canada. Now let's take a couple of minutes to learn how this important crop grows in Canada.
Hi, we're the Remples. I'm Jason, and this is Christy, and this is Avery, and Evan, and Kian. This is our farm, Rempel Co-Acres. We're a mixed farming operation. We grow grain, and we raise hogs and goats. We are a 3rd-generation farm. We're located just east of New Bothwell, Manitoba. I grew up on this farm, and I'm 45 years old, so you could say I've been farming for most of my life. Today we'll be learning about growing and harvesting wheat and what it can provide for you. This is the field that we planted the wheat in. So every fall, we have our fields soil sampled, which means we get somebody to come on with a machine and they'll stick a probe into the ground and take a core of soil, and we'll send it off to the lab for analysis to have the nitrogen and phosphorus and potassium analyzed. So that happens after the crop has been harvested so that we know what levels of fertilizer to apply for next year's crop. Wheat is okay with being planted into cool soil, so it's one of the first crops that we'll plant in the growing season. And so as soon as the soil is dry enough, we're able to go in and seed it. We don't have to wait for things to warm up. In order to grow a good crop of wheat, you have to feed it with fertilizer, and we apply all of our nitrogen and phosphorus and potash at the time of seeding. Fertilizer will help the wheat grow big and strong and produce a lot of nice, healthy kernels. After we've seeded the wheat, we can expect to see sprouts showing as soon as 6 to 7 days. After the wheat has sprouted and has put out a few flowers, we will come through with a pass of herbicide, which is a chemical that will kill the plants that aren't wheat. We do this so that the wheat doesn't have to try and outcompete the other plants that want to grow in the field. Later on in the growing season, we will have to also apply something called fungicide. Wheat is susceptible to various diseases that are brought on by fungus or molds, and we have to apply that fungicide to make sure that the wheat plant can actually finish its growing season and grow to maturity and fill this head with nice big fat kernels. If we don't apply fungicide and the wheat becomes diseased, these heads will be empty. So this is a nice healthy head of wheat. So the top part is the head. These are the kernels, the individual kernels from the wheat head. And if we separate some of the hull, we can see the individual kernels. And that is what is actually ground up to make flour. The individual kernels in the head, right now I can squeeze them and moisture will actually come out. Now this is still quite a ways off from being ready to harvest, but it is starting to change color. You can see the beards drying off and browning, and the rest of the kernels just starting to take a little bit of color. These kernels will continue to dry and ripen. We look for them to be too hard to squeeze, and then I'll actually be ready to harvest. The ideal day for harvesting wheat is going to be a nice, sunny, dry day. Everything separates so much easier in the combine that way. This is my combine that we use to harvest the wheat. We call this a straight header because we can cut the wheat while it's still standing in the field and harvest it directly, straight from the field into the combine. So after the wheat has been harvested and brought back to the farm, on our farm, because we're a mixed farm, we have our own feed mill, we do feed a little bit of the wheat to some of our younger piglets for their feed rations. And then we also sell some of our wheat to mills across the country. Mills use it for many different wheat-containing products, such as bread and bannock and pancakes, naan, and in many of your breakfast cereals as well. Wheat provides us with carbohydrates for energy and protein to help us grow strong muscles and bones, and has fiber to aid in digestion, and has many other micronutrients. Did you know that one slice of bread can provide enough energy to play 9 minutes of basketball? Well, that's pretty cool. Thanks for visiting us on our farm today. We hope you learned something new about wheat.
Thanks for coming to our farm.
That was great. Now, I hope you were listening, and I'm going to ask you a question based on the video that you just watched. So Similar to the last prize, type your answer in and you could win the second prize. So the trivia question is, what was the machine that farmers use to harvest their wheat? Again, the trivia question is, what was the machine that farmers use to harvest their wheat? Type the answer in and we'll follow up with the winner to get your details and send you out your prize. So the correct answer is, it's a combine. So this is something I have two of on my farm, and something that combines, takes in the crop and then separates the seeds through a process of separating the seed from the chaff and all the other straw. It pushes all the straw out the back of the combine and leaves the seed in the hopper that we end up using to create bread from. So the reason it was actually called a combine is because it was combining different tasks into the same process. So it was combining the wheat and separating at the same time. Thank you very much for playing. We will make one more door prize later on today, so keep on listening, and we're going to get back to Sarah.
To make bread, we will need to have wheat flours, the main ingredient, and need water, and yeast, salt, sugar, milk, and butter. So each ingredient plays an important role in making bread. But today we want to focus on two main ingredients, yeast and wheat flour, how to make the beautiful, fluffy, airy bread that everyone loves, and also the science behind it. Yeast is a living single-cell organism. Warm water will help them to wake up the yeast, to hydrate them together. And so when the yeast, what they do, they require sugar to generate the carbon dioxide that is trapped inside the bread dough, and also producing the alcohol that help develop the flavor. Now, in front of me, I have 3 beakers. This beaker, the first one, we only have water and sugar. And this one is water and yeast. But yeast need food, which is the sugar. So when we put in the yeast and water and sugar go together, and you can see the yeast is growing and waking up, and they do all their work, and you see all the bubble going up. And those are carbon dioxide. And if you get closer, you can even smell the alcohol. And that is helping the bread develop the very yeasty bread taste. So first of all, we have the wheat flour. We're going to put the fermented yeast solution that we prepare, the yeast, water, sugar that we have, wake up the yeast, and now put it in and say, time to do some work. You can help squeeze. Sometimes I can put sometimes this is the milk, and we can put some solution there, clean up. This is how my mom say, don't waste anything. So we put it in and put the milk. And then we have the sugar and salt. Mix it all in. So when they're mixing all the wheat protein, I want to tell you one thing. It's very interesting. It's a science way. There are 2 proteins in wheat flour. One is glutinous, one is glycinous. And when these 2 proteins will hydrate with water and all liquid ingredients, and they will form gluten. So we'll put this in here. This is the butter. We'll put the butter and kind of make it smooth. And you need this water too?
Yes, half of
Okay.
water. Please.
Half?
Yeah.
Okay. Now you can mix it by hand, but also you can use a kitchen aid that is very common in the commercial, the situation, the condition. They will use a kitchen aid, but they use a bigger one. At home, you can have a small one. So the mixing is to marry the 2 proteins together to get them work together and form gluten. As you mix more, there's more gluten developed. Just like you're knitting a sweater. You have more and more gluten built up, then you form a network. And the network is very important because after the mixing, the yeast also working on it too and create the carbon dioxide. And then when you have the gluten build up the network will hold on to the carbon dioxide. And so that's why when you're doing the proofing, and you will have more air bubble build up. And then when you bake in the oven, and then the more it will hold on to the carbon dioxide in the bread. Now, without the yeast in the bread dough, the dough will be really flat, and there was no way to hold on to carbon dioxide. We'll demonstrate when we get to that point. So this dough is mixed already, but without the kneading, you can see the dough when you pull apart. You can see it very easy to break apart. The gluten is not fully developed yet. So now we're going to put it on the counter and do more kneading. So as you knead more the dough on the counter, and you will see the more gluten develop. And so after kneading for a while, and then you can see the difference on the dough there. And so we'll knead for maybe at least 10 minutes to get it fully developed. And we'll show you the dough before fully developed, and we'll leave some here to show that it's not fully developed in the gluten. And then that's right, put some in here. And then we'll continue kneading this one. And once the gluten is fully developed, we'll show you how, when, and you can tell when the dough is fully developed, ready to go to mix into bread. So we'll show you that. So we have been kneading for a while now. So you can see the difference on the dough. This one is not enough kneading, and this one is enough kneading. There's more kneading, right? So you can see the dough surface is a little bit smoother. And when you pull apart, you can see some gluten development is a little bit stretchy already. So when it fully develops, when you knead long enough, and then you can see the dough surface is more smooth, and we can to show you how to say this dough is ready to go, the differences. You can pull that out. Yeah. So this one is we prepare earlier because we would have to knead for a little bit longer. You can see the differences, really stretchy. And once you pull apart, it's called window panel testing. So you can see the really, really thin dough, and you can see the light. And that means that the dough is ready to go. Now the dough is kneaded. It's ready to the next step, which is proofing. So we'll put in a bowl to let it proof. So proofing, you want to proof at the room temperature and cover with a cloth that is prevented it dry on the surfaces. So we have proof in advance. When the dough will double inside after proofing, which takes around an hour. So when you double in size like this, then what you do, you punch it down. When you punch it down like this and get the air out, because some of the air bubble is really big and some of them small. So you want the bread to not have a bubble hole in there. You want it all uniform inside the bubble. So that's why this step is very important. After you punch it down, you let it rise again. You fold a little bit again, and to make it nicely. And then let it rise for another 10 minutes. Let it rest. And then we divide the dough into 2 portions. And then you roll up and then put in the low pan. And then we will proof the final dough, the second rising, and then go to oven. So after kneading and after proofing, we punch it down. After punch it down, you let it rise, and then we shape it into the size that you can put in the low pan, and you put the oil in the low pan before putting the bread in. And when the loaf is continue proofing, it will double in size. That we have prepared another loaf in advance, and look at how beautiful here, and the carbon dioxide we produce during the yeast fermentation when the yeast consume the sugar, and then the gluten, because we knead the dough so well. Now the air bubble is trapped inside the dough. So now we let it rise from here to here, become double in size, and then ready to go to the oven and bake. And then we'll have a delicious bread.
Thank you very much, Sarah. It is really looking great. Now let's take this moment to go and watch a quick video of how much technology on farms has advanced over the years.
I can tell you where I was born, just a few hundred feet that direction. There used to be an old house there. I was born there 97 years ago.
Colborne Farms was established in 1910 by my great-great-grandfather. It's been in our family since then, been a centennial farm. Yeah, technology's been huge. Some of the biggest technology changes that they've seen, when they think about it, they've actually went from using horses and hay to diesel fuel and the internal combustion engine. So when you think about that, that's quite a significant change.
I can remember Dad, he'd have a horse and get their mouth open and file their teeth down. They were working with the horses all the time. The Massey Harris Company was making a big change, and they came out with these smaller gasoline, high compression engine tractors. And Dad, he fell in love with that thing. He just had to have one of them. So he took the 2 plows we had and the thrashing machine, and he traded the whole thing. He could do all the work that they did with 12 horses and the thrashing outfit and all that. He could do that himself and one man with his tractor and the combine.
The investment in technology has been a real game changer for our farm. If we're not advancing, we're going behind, and it's not going to allow us to get to the next generation of producers on our farm.
I was fortunate enough, my grandpa, he was miles ahead of his time. He was trying to direct seed back in the 30s because he was wake up in the morning and see our land blowing and whatnot. I get this from my father, and he was out trying to make a disc implementer of some sort to direct seed then because he knew this wasn't working. You cannot summer, fall, low light land. So we tried tree rows, we tried everything, and it was a disaster.
When they first started talking about zero-till, it helped us out very well. We started by zero-tilling with an old Noble hoe drill, and we took the seed boxes off and pulled an air tank behind, and that worked pretty good up until the time they started going into the new equipment after that. But the most important thing is the herbicides that we were able to use back. Some of the first herbicides we used was 2,4-D and Russian thistle and flickweed and millet. They were big weeds back then. That was able to control a lot of that with the herbicides.
For sure, in my lifetime, that was probably the biggest thing that helped this farm. We had quackgrass problems, but once the glyphosate showed up, when it was feasible, and then continuous cropping, yeah, that's for sure the biggest thing that's I've seen in my time.
Yeah, on Colborne Farms, canola will be very difficult to grow without the adoption of new technology. With the advent of herbicide-tolerant canola, it allows us to go in without disturbing the seed bed, not having that seed bed dry out, and get good establishment, get good emergence, and hopefully Mother Nature treats us good and gives us some moisture, and usually we're off to the races with that. And the other benefit is the sustainability piece. We're using less active ingredient pounds per acre when we look at the old technologies being like 20 pounds to the acre. Now we're using literally grams to the acre to control those weeds.
I look back at these guys, and they're doing real well, and I'm happy.
From the 90s and up, we've kept in touch with all the technology pretty much, with the GMOs and the steering and all the latest technology, and it's just changed everything. It's just made everything quite a bit easier. We're farming way more acres with way less work. It's completely different from when I started, for sure.
As you can see, there's a huge difference between what farmers used to do in terms of growing their crops with horses, whether it was planting or harvesting, to the point where we have today with big equipment and a lot of modern technology that we use on farms. Now it's time for our third and final prize, and this one's going to be multiple choice. So I'd ask that you enter in your correct response or your response into the chat function, and there'll be 3 options for this. So the question is, what does zero-till refer to? Is it A, not planting crops for a year? Is it B, planting your crops into the standing plants from the previous year? Or is it C, no charge for your planting seeds that year? So there's 3 options. Again, put it in the chat function. Not planting crops for a year is A, B, planting your seeds into the standing plants from the previous year, or C, no charge for your planting seeds that year. If you know the answer, put it in and we will pick the winner. So yes, the correct answer is B. Zero-till means that you're planting your crops into the standing crop from the previous year. This is all in an effort to make sure that we're not tilling up the soil, disturbing it, allowing that moisture to come back into the air and dry out. And it also promotes more of the organic matter to decompose and go back into the soil. So we will follow up with the winner here shortly. And Sarah, I'm going to send it back to you.
So while the bread is baking in the oven, we want to use this opportunity to explain to you some of the things that we want to share in this video and talk about the science behind it. So for this one, we made it with wheat flour, but we didn't have yeast in it. And you see how it is, it will not rise. But versus this one, we have wheat flour, yeast, and it's nice and puffy because the yeast work the way to bring out the carbon dioxide, to consume the sugar and produce the carbon dioxide and produce the flavor, right? And so the gluten trap the carbon dioxide, and that's why we hold on to the bubble. But this one, there's no yeast, so nothing can grow. It's really flat. Now this one is made with the flour that has no gluten in it and no wheat and kind of flat. Yeah. So we will show you how they come out from the oven. We will put all 3 loaves into the oven. Now time to take out the bread from the oven. We want to show you how is the result come out. This one is a perfect bread. This one with yeast and the wonderful wheat flour with gluten in it. And this one is we did not put yeast and there's no carbon dioxide, there's no bubble. And this one have no wheat flour with yeast in it, but they did not rise. So that is a perfect bread. And everyone loves this bread because you feel it is so soft and fluffy. And let's enjoy it. We cut it up and we can enjoy it. Let's cut up the bread. That is the best time after all the work. I feel like I'm just a little kid waiting to have the bread, nice fresh bread coming out from the oven.
There you go.
Oh, thank you. Oh, it smells so good. Look at the bubble, nicely formed. So there's nothing quite like a freshly baked bread. So I hope next time you'll make your bread and think about what is important in the making bread is the yeast and the wheat flour.
You know, there's nothing quite like freshly baked bread. And I remember when I was a kid, my mom would bake lots of bread for our family, and getting a fresh loaf of bread, cutting into it, putting some butter on it and some jam. It was absolutely memorable, and I still remember it to this day. So I hope next time you're baking bread that you think about how that yeast has helped the bread rise. I want to put out a special thank you for Sarah for being with us today and explaining how this all works. And remember that the link to the recipe is in the comments section if you want to click on it and make your own bread. I want to thank everybody for joining us today and congratulate the 3 prize winners. I'd like to remind you that you can find more about Canadian food and farming practices on CanadianFoodFocus.org. I also encourage you to look up Global Biotech Week as well as Agriculture in the Classroom to find lots more cool ideas around science and activities related to that. Thank you very much for joining us today, and I wish you all a great evening. All the best.